Hello and welcome back everybody to my budget builds monthly series and to the month of August. Let's check out what we have for this month. And for all these wondering why we have not done any other videos yet, we're working on them right now. Please stay tuned. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It will really help me out. Just a brief reminder on filling out next month's Google form. First off is your budget. Budgets are in USD and do not include taxes, fees, or Windows keys. Next is the type of system you want, whether it be gaming, workstation, or custom. Area of focus. If you want more focused system, just a side note, depending on your budget, the more area of focus you select, the overall budget will be less suitable for certain tasks. So again, if you want a better area focus on your CPU, better cooling, just select what kind of area focus you want. Then we have the list of components you already have. Even if you are doing a complete upgrade, that old case, power supply, or even graphics card will save some money in the meantime to put towards other components. No sense in buying two PC cases. If you want any peripherals in your budget. And then lastly, we have any last requests for either the system or this Google form. I'm constantly reviewing this thing and updating the form, so any suggestion helps. And don't forget to fill out this next month's Google form, links down in the description below. Quick disclaimer, the budget builds will be as close or slightly over the budget due to part availabilities, any sales going on at the time of recording, as well as we are not including OS keys or peripherals unless asked otherwise. Unless we have budgetary constraints, 4 builds will be coming out of this, 2 AMD and 2 Intel, both on the previous and newest generation. This is to ensure flexibility and upgradability to future-proof it. At the end of the video, we will be comparing each system to each other and displaying the pros and cons of each build, so then we can figure out which is the best build for the current price. Alright, so we got another response on our Google form. This person has a budget of 350 USD. They want a gaming system, and they want to focus on their CPU and GPU. They've actually listed their already purchased components. So they said they have a Ryzen 5 5600X, a stock cooler, then another motherboard, a 16 gig kit of DDR4 3200 RAM, a 1TB SSD, a GTX 1660, some sort of mid-tower case, and a 750 watt cold power supply. They said they want to upgrade their system to be better, but they don't know which components they should put their budget towards, and then no response for peripherals or other requests. So let's take a look at what kind of build they got. Alright, so the user does not know their motherboard or their case. So for the case, I just picked this NZXT. It's just some sort of mid-tower case. It's a stand-in. And as for a motherboard, we're going to pick something that you kind of see in a pre-build, but also comes with Wi-Fi, just so it can fit all the criteria. This person's build. Now we're just going to take this and we're going to start building our first AM4 system with that $350 budget. Alrighty, so we're going to do a CPU focus, then we're going to do a graphics card focus, and then we're going to try to see if with that $350 budget if we can bounce between the two, but it's probably going to be very difficult to find a better CPU and graphics card with that small $350 budget, but let's just see what we got. Alright, starting off, we have our AM4 system. We went with the Ryzen 9 5900X, 12 core, 24 thread, 3.7 gigahertz boosting to 4.8, and then we have the rest of the user's build still has some sort of AM4 motherboard, the 16 gigabytes of RAM, a terabyte SSD, 1660, some sort of mid-tower case, and then 750 watt power supply. Again, that $350 budget kind of doesn't give us a lot of room to do upgrades, but that's what the testing's for, to see which build you want to do overall. Let's move on to our GPU focused AM4 build. Alrighty, and for our GPU focused AM4 build, we have the exact same spec list, except this time we went with the RX 6700 XT from ASRock, exactly at that $350 budget. So let's see if we can do some sort of balance build and then get on to testing. Just a quick editor's note here. So any system after our DDR4 AM4 system, we don't have enough money in the budget to upgrade both the CPU and a GPU for the balance build. So instead of just sitting here and repeating myself multiple times, I decided just to take a second and just let you guys know that, again, we don't have enough money in the budget to build those balance builds. Alright, back to the video. Alrighty, and then for Intel, we have the i5 12600KF, 10 core, 20 thread, 3.7 gigahertz boost to 4.9, and And then for the motherboard, we went with the B660M from Gigabyte. It's our LGA 1700 motherboard. And then we still have that 16 gig kit of Corsair DDR4, and then the same storage, video card case, and power supply. Alrighty, and there's one more thing I want to check out before we go into testing, is to see if we can do any AM5 or LGA 1700 DDR5 Intel build. Alrighty, and for $3 under budget, we went with the i5 12600K, 10 core, 20 threads, 3.7 GHz boost to 4.6. We went with the Gigabyte H610M. It's again our LGA 1700 motherboard, running Patriot Viper Black, a 16 gig kit of DDR5 5200 CL36, and then we have the same storage, video card case, and power supply as before. So again, this is our CPU heavy DDR5 Intel build. Now let's see if we can do a AM5 build. Yes, we still have the same memory as our Intel build. This time we went with the ASRock A620M. We are a few dollars over budget. We can actually drop this to like a cheaper motherboard. Again, there is no Wi-Fi capabilities with this motherboard, and this will bring us to under budget, and we can still get that Ryzen 5 7600X 6 core 12 thread 4.7 GHz boost to 5.3. So all the builds are done. Let's go get into testing and see pretty much which system the user should upgrade to. CPU benchmarks alone, here we have our Ryzen 9 5900X, 5600X, 7600X, i5 12600K, and our i5 12600KF. Now these are our Intel DDR4, DDR5, only CPU heavy. This is our AM5, only CPU heavy. This is our base and GPU heavy, and this one is our Am4 CPU heavy. Now you can see that the 12600K and KF are better than our base, but it is not worth it spending all $350 USD of our budget and just rebuilding our architecture to be Intel, since our Ryzen 9 5900X and Ryzen 5 7600X are actually better than those. So we're just going to go ahead and remove our Intel, which leaves us with this: our Ryzen 9 5600X, our Ryzen 9 5900X, and our Ryzen 5 7600X. Since the Ryzen 9 5900X and the Ryzen 5 7600X both use the GTX 1660 from our base build, we're just going to remove the 7600X because the Ryzen 9 5900X is a lot better. And that leaves us with this: the Ryzen 9 5900X and the Ryzen 5 5600X. We're just going to compare to see which one of these two is better off in spending money. Do you want to buy a new CPU or stick with the same CPU and buy a better graphics card? Let's get into testing. And for our CPU and GPU tests, here we have our base GTX 1660 with that Ryzen 5 5600X. Here we have our Ryzen 5 5600X with that RX 6700 XT. And then finally we have our CPU heavy Ryzen 9 5900X with that GTX 1660. Now FPS scores alone, we can see that the RX 6700 is right on top of everything. The Ryzen 9 5900X, even though it is a very powerful CPU, it does only give a little bit more FPS than that Ryzen 5 5600X. Meaning right now our bottleneck is that GTX 1660. So the user, you are better off buying that RX 6700 XT build, because even your average 1080p performance is 160 FPS, while the Ryzen 9 5900X only gets about 1.3 FPS more than the Ryzen 5 5600X. So all in all, our Ryzen 9 5900X build with that GTX 1660 kind of doesn't work out as best as the Ryzen 5 5600X with that RX 6700 XT. So our clear winner is our RX 6700 XT build. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.